When we look around the game of baseball right now, there are a ton of great double play combinations. You have Corey Seager and Marcus Semien in Texas, and Jose Altuve and Jeremy Pena in Houston. Look at Xander Bogaerts and Trey Turner joining new teams to help form great double play combos. But I still believe that Francisco Lindor are the best double play combination in baseball. On today's show, I'm going to explain why.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor, and where I just wrote an article today breaking down the top double play combinations in baseball. And yes, Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil were at the forefront of the discussion and atop my list, but really it was interesting to look around the game and try to make that comparison, try to go head to head and compare what the Mets have with what other teams in baseball have as I was formulating my list, because I didn't want to just show my bias, right? I'm writing for, a national site here. This isn't just a Mets audience I'm writing towards. This is trying to get all baseball fans engaged in the content. And as I looked through everything, I just could not make an argument for any of the other double play combinations ahead of Lindor and McNeil. Now, before we get into my top five, we'll go around the game a little bit. Some of the double play combos that aren't quite where I thought Lindor and McNeil were, and the others that ultimately cracked the top five. First off, you have the Braves, Ozzie Albies and Vaughn Grisham. That could be one of the best double play combinations in baseball, but it's early in that formation, right? We still haven't seen Grisham play shortstop at the big league level every day. That's going to come this year with Dansby Swanson leaving. We'll see what the Braves end up doing here, but I thought that they were a tier below some of these top combinations. Now, Tampa, you have a group that I really like, right? You have Wander Franco and Brandon Lau. That is a duo that could be the best in all of baseball if they were to stay healthy this year, because last year they didn't. Lau hit 14 home runs in 56 games in 2020. Then he hit 39 home runs in 2021. If he is healthy in that guy, he might be the best power hitting second baseman not named Marcus Semien. And then, you have on the other side of it a prospect or a guy who was a top prospect in all of baseball, Wander Franco, who now has 2 seasons under his belt, but only about 140, 150 games. Hasn't been able to stay healthy just yet. At least he didn't last year. But if he is to stay healthy, he's projected to be a 4.5, a 5-win player. That's a great double play combo. A couple others that did not make the list, Cleveland, Andres Gimenez and Amed Rosario, were a sneaky interesting one. They weren't even an honorable mention, but I did discuss them in my introduction because, what Gimenez did last year to be a 6-win player was really impressive, and Amed Rosario continues to rack up those singles. He's not a great extra base hit guy, but you know what? The defense has gotten better and better, and it's not a bad combo, and it's a combo they got in exchange for Francisco Lindor. Bo Bichette and Santiago Espinal were another one where it's really just carried by one guy instead of two. I think that was the difference here that separated the top five, is they had 2 guys that I felt like were really, really above average, whereas in this instance, I don't necessarily view Espinal in that way, while Bichette is great. You have Carlos Correa and Jorge Polanco were an honorable mention because Correa is one of the best shortstops in baseball. Polanco coming off a season in 2021 where he had 33 homers. Last year, I think it was about 16 bombs for him, so not quite the same production, but it is in the tank for him. The Twins, though, they have a lot of infielders with Nick Gordon and Royce Lewis, so we don't really know exactly what that double play combo looks like throughout the season. It could be some guys cycling in that second base spot while Correa's out there every day. Beyond that, the other big honorable mention was Chicago. So Dansby Swanson, Nico Hoerner. Hoerner was a great defensive shortstop last year for the Cubs. Now he shifts over to second base because you have a Gold Glover in place in Swanson, but we still don't know if Swanson is just a one-year wonder. He did have a decent season in 2021. Was able to eclipse 25 homers, and that is all fine and well, but he wasn't the exact player that he ended up being in 2022, where, he was a guy that might have even gotten some MVP votes. I mean, he was an amazing player for the Braves. He was a 6.4 F-WAR guy, so over 6 wins that he added to that Braves team. And, he's someone that could build off that and be really good, but they were not on this list because I don't entirely know how much I could trust a Swanson going into this year to be that guy again. And Hoerner, while a very good player and a great defender, as a hitter, he's only slightly above average. I think there's some room there, and honestly, I really did consider putting them over the Phillies, who were number 5 on my list. But at the end of the day, I felt that Trey Turner was too good to leave him out of the top 5, and that is where we will pick things up in just a minute here. I want to go through my entire top 5, and then we'll close the show really focusing in on Lindor and McNeil, because what they bring to this Mets squad is, a level of excellence up the middle that I really think trickles down and helps carry the rest of this lineup. Before we get to that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We are just past the midway point of the NBA season. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, and it's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. I also am at the point where I'm looking at MLB futures, and I continue to tell you, Francisco Lindor plus 2,500, sprinkle a little bit of action on that, because if he pulls that off, you are going to be very happy with your payout. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now we look at my top 5 double play combinations in baseball, starting with Trey Turner and Bryson Stott. Ultimately, this is because of Turner. This is because you have the guy that has led all of Major League Baseball in wins above replacement, among shortstops, I should say, since 2019. He might even be like second to Aaron Judge in all of baseball. So Turner is no doubt about it, 5-tool player. I will say the defensive tools are closer to average, but he does have them. And when you add in the speed to steal bases, when you add in the power that he has, he's such a good player that I felt like he had to be included on this list. And Bryson Stott at second base. Look, the Phillies, I think, are going to be set up the middle for a pretty good amount of time now with Turner and Stott, because Stott, doesn't have those impressive numbers. If you look at his rookie season, he hit 234, 295 on base, 358 slugging, but he was dreadful in April. He was bad in May. He didn't homer until June 3rd, which happens to be my dad's birthday. And from that point on, really, if you actually go from the beginning of that month, Bryson Stott hit 257, 318 on base, 401 slug, 10 home runs, 12 stolen bases. His weighted runs created plus was 102. That means he was slightly better than league average. League average is 100 on that stat. So, you're looking at a guy that, is a good defender who is about an average hitter. And when you have Turner, that's all you need, especially because I think Stott plays up a little more at second base. That defense, he was -5 defensive runs saved at shortstop, -3 outs above average. He was +3 outs above average at second. So now you get a full season of that. I think that team is going to have much better defense up the middle than they did last year. And I think the upside's there with Turner, of course, and with Stott maybe being a little bit better in year 2. Still, though, they could not replace, or they could not be higher than number 4 on my list, which is Xander Bogaerts and Ha-Seong Kim. Bogaerts comes to the National League after years in Boston. He is maybe the most consistent hitter from the shortstop position. That's how good he has been. He is, coming off a really good season as well, where he actually was solid defensively, which hasn't always been his game. He's been a negative player based on defensive runs saved throughout his entire career. Last season in a contract year, 5 defensive runs saved. Will that hold up? I don't necessarily know, and that's part of why I had them a little bit lower on this list than the top 3, is I don't entirely trust Bogaerts' defense at short, and I also think that, the second basemen from here on out are better than Ha-Seong Kim. But, if Kim wasn't great, wasn't a really solid defensive infielder, maybe Fernando Tatis Jr. is back at shortstop and Bogaerts is playing second base, and that could be the best middle infield in baseball. Instead, they decided to put Tatis in the outfield and keep Kim in the infield because he was that good defensively at shortstop last year, filling in for Tatis. He was 10 defensive run saves, 6 outs above average. Now he can contend for a Gold Glove at second base. He was almost a 4-win player last year. If Kim is a 15-homer guy, 15 stolen bases while playing Gold Glove defense, the Padres double play combination is going to be really, really solid. But the top 3 on this list to me were inarguable. I mean, I think without a shadow of a doubt, these are the best 3 double play combinations in baseball. What order you stack them up in is where we can have some debate. But for me, it's the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, and then the New York Mets. And the Rangers, on paper, could be the best of the 3. It's the only double play combination in baseball where I look at them and I say, 75, 80 home runs, that's a possibility, a distinct one, honestly, because Corey Seager is coming off a career year where he hit 33 homers. Semien has 45 in the tank. We've seen that before. So how high does that home run total climb? How good can they be? They were really dubbed to be the best double play combination in baseball when the Rangers gave them $500 million to join forces. But year 1 wasn't great. It was uneven for them, and Semien did not homer until May 28th. Playing every day, it took him 2 months to hit a home run, and of course he hits it in Oakland, where he played to start his career a lot of. So to see him get comfortable there, and then it just sort of took off for him. He ended up homering 26 times in his final 118 games. He had 267, 324 on base, 492 slugging, 130 WRC plus, 30% better than your league average hitter. During that same window from May 28th on, Corey Seager added 25 homers, so 51 from the pair over the final basically 4 months of the season. That's showing you their immense potential. And for Seager, he had a career-high 33 home runs, and he did play over 150 games, which is great for him. The problem was his slash line was down across the board. Career low in average, on base, and slugging at 245, 317, and 455. So is Seager going to return to the Dodgers numbers when it comes to his averages on base? Those type of statistics more than just the counting numbers. Is Semien going to be able to put it together for a full season? I think there's a really high possibility that this becomes the top double play combination in baseball. But at the same time, I could also see Seager only playing 70 games, and you get to Semien now in his 30s where maybe there is a slight step back. So that's why I had them third. I had Altuve and Pena ahead of them second because I just think, what have you done for me lately? For them, they won a World Series. Altuve was the best second baseman in baseball last year, and he has been. And for Pena, you fill in for a Gold Glover in Correa. You win a Gold Glove yourself. He was slightly above average in the regular season. He did struggle, in that second half a little bit. But I look at that for him, and I think that he overcame it, and we saw the best version of him when the scouting reports were, the starkest that they are, where people are really, getting into all the video and trying to see where they can exploit the holes in your swing. And the guy went out and hit 345, and he won 2 MVPs. He won the NLCS MVP and the World Series MVP. So to me, Jeremy Pena is a really great shortstop. Altuve is maybe the best second baseman in baseball. That's why I put them ahead of the Rangers. What I couldn't do is put them ahead of the Mets because the Mets have the best double play combination in the game We're going to get to that in just a minute. First, though, another word from our sponsors. Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil, the top double play combination in the game today, as ranked by us over at justbaseball.com. Look, there's a lot of reasons why I believe this is the best double play combination. For one, we look at wins, right? Who brought the most wins to their team last year as a double play duo? By far, McNeil, Lindor. Lindor had a 6.8 FWAR, McNeil 5.9. Combine them, you got 12.7 wins. The second best duo of all these listed today was actually a duo that's now forming. If you combine Horner and Swanson, they were at a 10.4 FWAR. Now, who knows if Horner is going to be as productive moving from shortstop to second? Who knows if Swanson is going to be as good in a new place? And again, they were still almost or over 2 wins worse than the Mets. You had Altuve and Pena right there too. They were at 10 wins, but the Mets duo is better, and ultimately it goes to both sides. I think that's the thing here. We were also ranking this week our top 10 shortstops, our top 10 second basemen. McNeil was second on the second baseman list, and Lindor was number 1 on the shortstop list. And both of them are guys that offensively, you love what they bring to the table, right? Jeff McNeil has 2 seasons in his career where he's posted a WRC plus over 140. Being over 40% better than your league average hitter is elite stuff. He just won a batting title. He's maybe the best bat-to-ball guy in the game today, and he plays with such a level of aggression on the base paths, in the field. He's a great defensive second baseman. Him and Lindor are starting to form a pretty good chemistry. The crazy thing to me was looking through this list. I mean, name them off. Maybe the Blue Jays have been around a little bit, but the Braves, new double play combination, Vaughn Grisham is entering the mix. The Twins, Correa and Polanco got a little bit of time last year, but this would still be year 2. Wander and Lau, 2021, 2022, same time span as Lindor and McNeil, nowhere near the amount of games played. Rosario and Jimenez, technically a lot of time together if you go back to the time with the Mets, but that was a 2020 season, and then it was 2021 and 2022, and Jimenez wasn't really around much for 2021, so it really was just last year that they joined forces. You go to, Swanson and Horner, that's a new duo. Turner and Stott, new duo. Bogarts and Kim, new duo. Seager and Simeon were a new duo last year. Lindor and McNeil now with 2 full seasons under their belt going into year 3. That's about as experienced as any double play combination is together. And when you have 2 guys as good defensively, I think Lindor's defense is going to be even better this year and really play up with the elimination of the shift. When you have that as the backbone, you know that they are going to be very high on wins above replacement leaderboards by the end of the season. But you also know they're going to be really, helping the Mets day in and day out win baseball games with the bat, with the glove, with the hustle on the bases, everything else in between. This is, in my opinion, if we were to look at the strength of the Mets, I think this might be the best strength. I mean, obviously Pete Alonso is, maybe the best run producer in the game. You love what the Mets can do in the outfield. Now they bring Nimmo back with Starling Marte as well, and Mark Canha being a very solid contributor. And you are looking at an infield as a whole when you combine Alonso with Escobar and say, oh yeah, it's a pretty good group. But to me in particular, it's up the middle where the strength is. And really, even beyond just McNeil, Lindor, what we saw last year, why the Mets won 101 games, we always talk about that strength at the middle. Defensively, behind the plate, you got it with Nito and McCann last year. And this year, I think with Nito and Narvaez. But having McNeil, Lindor, and Nimmo in the outfield, you had 3 guys who graded out above average on both sides, who all were worth more than 5 wins. That is really special for this Mets team. They come back, they join forces again, and I think that's going to continue to be a strength of them moving forward. Now that you have Jeff McNeil, 5-year deal, this is a duo that can just continue to grow together, continue to try to win a lot of baseball games, and important ones hopefully, as well as the season draws to a close and you are envisioning a time where that duo gets to turn double plays and when the moments are most impactful in the postseason. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for a second listen, check out Locked On MLB Prospects, hosted by Lindsey Crosby. Locked On MLB Prospects is where you want to go to learn about the stars of tomorrow. Follow Locked On MLB Prospects on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts.